talking about sort of attracting, maybe not attracting as such, but with the younger fans, we're probably talking a bit of a higher age group now, university age.
Yeah.
I read that Whitehawk have I don't know if they still do actually, but they had a coach or a bus or whatever that would take them from Elm Grove, I think it was Elm Grove, or somewhere else in Brighton, to Whitehawk for free. And obviously they still have to pay to get into the ground, but I thought that was a pretty good way of getting students to come to games. And I had this idea that well, is this something that the club would be interested in considering, because you've got Sussex Uni about 5-minute train journey away, and then the Pan's about a 2-minute walk. I think that and these uni students, they're there for about 3 or 4 years. I think it'd be quite a good way of attracting some new fans to the ground. But yeah, what's your opinion on that? And also, is there any other sort of ways that are being considered to get new fans to the Pan?
Yeah, I'm not going back to the first point. I'm not sure Whitehawk still do that. I know they did do it. I don't think the take up was particularly strong, and part of the reason being is that, again, it's about your match day experience, and your match day experience doesn't tend to start and end with a football ground. I think it's a little bit more than that, and also a lot of the students do get cheap travel, so a coach for 2 or 3 miles is not necessarily going to make a big difference. Whitehawk do get a fair amount of students go, which completely understand why they would do. I think I don't think anybody really does this well, to be honest. It's not just us, it's not just Whitehawk, it's not just Worthing, it's not just Eastbourne. Nobody really does it well, and I think partly is there's that transient nature of students. So yeah, they're going to be around for 3 years. There's certainly more and more of a drive now, and for students to work. I read somewhere in the last couple of weeks that there's now more students that have jobs than don't have jobs because of the cost of funding and living. So potentially, a Saturday afternoon or an evening maybe where a student is working. And certainly, my own experience of my daughter who's at Brighton Uni, she works at the club behind the bar, but she also works in a restaurant. So there is that to bear in mind. But I think that what nobody does really well is that real engagement, almost like trying to recruit somebody from within the universities to really drive people to come into games. We have tried it before. We've attended freshers fairs, looked at discounts. Now, one of the things we do have is Shrey is our fan and manager. He does a lot of work trying, with local schools, local universities, the colleges and things like that, trying to get people along. It is a tough job. It really, really is a tough job. There's an opportunity for us, to become, students' second favorite team. That is, there's certainly something there. It's just one that needs constant work on. It needs one that you need that constant drive for it, and I think it's something that everyone could do better. But I think it's also down to resources and us as a club have a finite number of resources, and we try and focus on other areas that do bring success for us.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's interesting to hear, and I think because I've spoken to a couple of fans that have showed up at the Pan that I think they went to, I think it's, yeah, Sussex or something like that. But it's only just because I had this idea, because when I was at Sussex, me and a few of my mates, we went to Whitehawk. We went to a game. This is before I started going to Lewes regularly again, and I think it was before COVID. I went to a game because I'd taken like a few years out of sort of following Lewes regularly, and I went to a game at Whitehawk, and I realized I was like, this is actually great. Like, why? I should start going again. And I told my uni mates that I was with, I was like, look, I've got this team that Lewes that I actually used to go and watch all the time with my Lewes mates. Like, you should come along to that. It's miles better than Whitehawk. So yeah, let's go along to that. Next weekend, lockdown. So that got put on ice for a long time until the next uni year started. And during all that time in lockdown, all of like my friends were all saying like, right, yeah, when lockdown ends, we are going back to Lewes. Like, we are, gonna make a thing of it. Like, we've just it's part of this whole thing about missing football so much. And so yeah, and then it's funnily enough, this is a bit interesting for us, but like when we got there, when we were at the Pan, because obviously the crowds are a bit lower because of COVID, but we got there and there was no one doing the chants, and like no spooky, no one was there. And I remember thinking, like, hold on, like when we were younger, there was this whole group of people that chanted, and no one's doing it now. Like, felt a bit flat. So then we were like, well, I think we had agreed amongst ourselves that we were gonna, just do it. And then we started doing it, and then we went away to Wingate and Finchley. I can't remember the year, but we lost 4-1. It was under 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐭𝐬, and this is what I mean about, when you go on these away days and you get tonked, but you still have a great time. And that was the start of it. That was our first away day, and it really became like a thing from then on, really. And so yeah, but yeah, it's always interesting to hear about how people get started with these sort of things. But yeah, I'll go on to a bit of a tangent there, but to a different question. This is actually probably my biggest one. I saw a video about this and I was like, oh my God. So I'd really like to hear what your opinion is on it. But a few years ago there was talks of a new clubhouse and changing rooms being built. I don't know if before this call, I was trying to find the video, but I couldn't find it. But I think it was from 2017. But I've seen the architecture plans online by Baker Brown's studio, and it looks pretty big. Like, it's going to be a construction of a multi-functioning community hub with it looked like a gym, a theater, new clubhouse. And I was like, oh my God, it looked like, similar sort of thing to what Bromley have just got in, because when we went away there for Cray, like they got that huge new bar.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like next time we go there, we're not going to pub beforehand, we'll just go there. Like, that was really was like quite a big shock. But yeah, I was wondering, what is this all about? Because I have not I just haven't heard any of it before I watched it, and I thought, what's the deal?
So you always have to be thinking ahead. So we always have to be thinking about, if money was in some ways, if money was no object, or we were able to source the right funding, what could we do with the Pan? And it may sound, a little bit far-fetched, but the fact that we got nearly £1 million for the pitch, the fact that we built the 3G, so there is money out there.
Yeah,
and it's about trying to find the right money, and there's a lot of there's been some really good progress made with other elements of redevelopment work within the Pan over the last few months as well. So we have to think that ambition. So if we want our women's team to be playing in the Super League, at the moment and again, controversial view, perhaps, from certain elements, but the Premier League or the Super League doesn't particularly want Lewis in there. It wants Crystal Palace in there. It wants Newcastle in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't want Lewis in there.
Mm.
And one of the sticks they will always use, or the barriers they will always use, will be about facilities. Always will be about facilities. So we have to be prepared, and we have to acknowledge, okay, how can we put a plan together that will enable us to compete off the pitch, to generate revenue for the club, but also access some of the funding that could be available. So over the years, we've drawn up a number of plans. We've drawn up plans for a redevelopment of the ground as it was, and probably what you saw was part of the redevelopment work, and it actually may date back before 2017.
Oh, wow.
To when we were originally building the 3G. And when we originally wanted to build the 3G, part of that was going to be a changing room block, effectively where the porter cabin is now. A 2-story changing room block. And at the ground level, what there would be a tunnel, essentially, going out into the convent field. Okay. And then you walk down that way down to the 3G. Problem number one, big problem, is the ground is surrounded on 3 sides by a flint wall. That flint wall dates back a long time in some places.
Yeah.
So any type of construction work, you need to jump through so many hoops, and we couldn't get permission to put that link in. So therefore, we decided not at that point to build the changing room block. And we do need changing rooms. So the other point we looked at was, okay, how do we redevelop the rest of the ground so that we could maximize what we need? And one of the ideas was that you dig down into the Mounfield Road bank, you put a permanent structure there. Then you start having to think about the concerns about the residents opposite and about their view, because it's not just a view of the football ground, it's a view of the surrounding area. We also looked at what it would be like if we turned the pitch 90 degrees, which obviously would mean you'd have to demolish the main stand, and how that would look. Yeah. So there's all these things. All these things have been thought about. All these things. We've had plans drawn up at a relatively early stage, but we're constantly looking at ways in which how could we improve the fan experience? How can we generate more revenue from our facilities? The other thing also to bear in mind is that we don't own the ground. The ground is owned by the council. We have a very good relationship with the council, and we've got a very long lease with the council, but we don't own the ground, and that therefore makes any type of redevelopment structural work tricky.
Okay.
So when we put the new pitch down, we had to get a lot of things from the council agreed and a lot of things in place. But any type of work we want to do involves a lot of planning permission and a lot of other permissions that we will need. So, yes, absolutely. The redevelopment, I remember it clearly. The reason why I remember it clearly is on the artistic drawings, like you have those, you always have the same type of picture of people walking towards the ground and the ground lit up like this beacon in the room. And the reason why I know that is the first character right in the middle is me. It's a picture of me, like the backdrop of me walking towards the ground. And I always said that I was going to, I want to charge royalties for that.